love to pick up parts of the Japanese culture and bring it back to Australia.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons I work at the school I do, because its motto is around respect. It was actually bought by a Japanese man and set up.
Welcome to the show. I'm Michael Kuzilny. Tough times never last. Got a lovely lady on the couch, Diana Murase. She's the first non-Asian lady to win a world championship in karate. Now, I did Zendu-kai when I was younger with, I think it was the Bob Jones Corporation, but your style is a lot more advanced, isn't it?
Yeah, it's called Kyokushin Karate. And it's known as a stand-up to pretty tough fight in karate because we knock down or knock out to win tournaments.
Wow, it's the real stuff, none of this fancy schmancy stuff.
Yeah, no punching to the head, but you're certainly allowed to kick to the head. So
thanks for coming all the way from Geelong, Diana. You're a beautiful soul and amazing. And I read your story, and at 18 you had a boyfriend, and something happened where you decided I might take up karate.
Yeah, I was going out with this boy for quite a while, and I thought that it was true love.
Yeah.
And I found myself in a pretty scary situation where he was trying to drag me to a car to drive home drunk.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want to get into that car. And I was really thankful that I got away, jumped into a taxi and drove home to find him hiding behind the fence and waiting for me. And it was just an awful state of panic and sense of powerlessness where I was just so worried about being able to look after myself. I drove to a telephone box in those days and popped my 20 cents in to call mum to come out in the middle of the night to come and get me. But at that point, I made a decision that I wanted to be able to look after myself. And I was very fortunate at the time that I was working at Alcoa, the aluminium smelter in Geelong, and the person in the office next to me was running a karate school. And he'd encouraged me lots of times to come and join him. And that Monday, I walked into the office and I said, "Tell me, how do I join?"
Isn't that amazing? And then at the age of 25, you had attained black belt?
That's right, yeah. So it's a long path in the style of karate that I do. It's not sort of what we sometimes refer to as a McDonald's karate where you can drive through and pick up a black belt.
You're so disciplined. And I read somewhere, folks, that somewhere along the line, Diana became a bouncer in Geelong.
Yes, that's right. I was a brown belt, and I did like going out an awful lot, and I'd made some friends because of a lot of the karate boys were bouncing at the time, and they said to me, "Why don't you come and join us? Because they have so much trouble managing."
You would have been the pretty door girl. You would have been, greeting everybody.
I was, but I also got the job of taking the girls out of the toilets when they weren't perhaps a little bit under the weather.
Is that right?
Yes. It wasn't a great look for boys to be dragging girls out. Yeah.
And in the police force, when we sort of arrested people who are very drunk or violent, it was always called, we subdued the... So you learn techniques to subdue.
That's right. And it was really interesting. A lot of the boys actually weren't too sure of whether they would take me on and lose against a girl or beat up a girl. Either way, it wasn't a great look. So, yeah, that was a bit of a weekend social event, but it was
Diana, I've got the highest respect for you. I really do. I think anyone who spends so much time in martial arts and training and that discipline carries on to every area of your life, but it doesn't stop there. 25, Diana said she wanted to really go the extra mile, moved to Japan, lived with a family she didn't know, couldn't speak Japanese, and you were sad. You were homesick. You started crying at night time. God bless you.
I know. I wanted to put myself outside my comfort zone, but I didn't realise how tough it would be. So that wasn't in the age of the internet or email. So I was really, really disconnected. Nobody knew me. I didn't know anybody, and I couldn't actually talk to anybody about how I was feeling. So, there was an awful lot of nights that I just went to bed and cried, wondering what I'd done to myself.
This is amazing. So already in Australia, you had won different championships, yeah? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I sort of felt like I'd got to that level in Australia, and I wanted to go to Japan and find out what was the magic technique.
What are the championships called, the ones you did here?
So I had previously started in no contact, and then as I got to a high level, I started fighting full contact tournaments.
Yes.
We often have Victorian and national competitions.
So then you became probably the best in Australia.
Oh, there was a couple of girls that were fantastic, and we shared it, but there weren't a lot of women fighting full contact even in those times. in
So
Australia.
then a world championship came up in Japan.
Yeah, it was the first time women were going to fight full contact. So
First time.
yeah, so you can imagine the Japanese culture and certainly I guess their vision of women. It wasn't toughing it out on the ring, punching each other and kicking each other.
And this humble Geelong girl who's a trained fighter just decides to stay there and just give it a good shot.
I did. I thought I would go and find out what it was the true tradition behind karate.
That is
Put myself
beautiful.
out there.
Because I read somewhere there's this philosophy of always becoming better, isn't there? Whereas I find in Western society, you know, we get better at stuff, but then a lot of people get drunk and go have hangovers and then they start again. But the Japanese are very disciplined, aren't they?
Yeah, so the particular thing that we follow, or the philosophy behind karate, is usu no seishin, which means a spirit of perseverance, which is really about not giving up. And I guess that path to becoming a black belt, how tough that is to get to black belt, training for a tournament. The fights are generally 2 minutes, but you train a lot more than 2 minutes to get to a 2 minute.
And that's why you've created such a successful life. You know, what a great foundation. And somewhere along the line, you met the great man, Tsuyoshi.
Yes, that's right.
Tsuyoshi.
So when I went over to Japan, I went over to learn about martial arts and I brought home a husband.
Is that beautiful? And I read he was a quite prominent and famous martial artist, huh?
That's right. So the tournament that I went to, the World Tournament in 1996, it was the first time they held the women's, but they held it in conjunction with the men's Open World Karate Tournament, and that's only held every 4 years, and it's an open weight tournament. So there's 60 kilo boys fighting full contact against 120 kilos. So
that is amazing.
That's where we met.
And where was that held?
That was held in Tokyo in a fantastic, great big venue. Yeah.
We'll have a short break. I want to hear about that, the atmosphere there, but. And I think also your husband broke your leg. I want to find out about that as well, but we'll be back very shortly. Diana's on the couch, a world champion martial artist and a beautiful soul. So many lessons you would have for your children and other people going through difficult times because when your mind's disciplined, you know how to get on top of crisis, don't you?
Absolutely, sticking it out. I was also lucky that I was really passionate about it. So those are the two lessons, I think. Make sure you're passionate about something.
Yes.
And then stick to it.
Yeah, that's great advice. And especially for people sort of who recently finished year 12 and they're trying to work out their future, you really have to find your passion in life, don't you?
Absolutely. And I have a son that went through COVID in year 12 last year. So, and that was the same lessons for him. Absolutely.
Same lessons. So he's got a great mentor. How'd you meet the great...
my husband, Tsuyoshi.
Tsuyoshi?
Yeah. So
it's a pity I didn't get to meet him.
Yeah, he never expected to come away with a foreign wife as well. I can tell you, it was a funny story.
And what was Tsuyoshi doing at the time?
He was obviously martial arts in Japan is very big, so he was a full-time karate instructor.
Wow.
So it was a little bit like becoming a monk in karate, I guess, form where he had to give up his life and shave his head. And,
love this man.
Yeah. So he's very disciplined as well, and that was certainly part of the attraction, that we had that same set of values of being very dedicated to what we were doing.
Yes.
And not giving up and very focused.
That is amazing.
Mm.
And then tell me about you and him had a spar.
That's well.
So when you fell in love?
Well, interesting story, but he couldn't speak English and I couldn't speak Japanese. So
the language of love.
It was the language of love, absolutely. And he started training me. I went down to Hiroshima. I was originally in Osaka and then went to Tokyo and then down to Hiroshima. I was very fortunate that the organisation that I was with allowed me to travel around to the different clubs. And I met him when I went down to Hiroshima and there was certainly some attraction there. So I decided to stay in Hiroshima and he became my coach.
You pronounce those names so well. You've got that Japanese culture in you. What happened to your knee?
So we were training for the World Cup. So after winning the All Japan women's tournament, which was the first time a non-Japanese
we don't want to rush over that. This is exciting. So previously, only Japanese people had won this tournament, and of course, and then you come along from Geelong, and tell me about that.
It was the first ever full contact women's All Japan tournament.
Yeah.
And I went out there and I ended up winning it. And they weren't quite expecting that to happen. That's for
Big
sure.
crowd.
It was a
huge crowd.
Fantastic.
And how many people do you have to knock out before you?
So I had 6 rounds to get through to the grand final. And the final went to 4 extensions because they were having trouble declaring a winner. So it was I had to really fight for my life, basically.
And these ladies must have been fearless. They must have been barbarians, you know. And there's this lady from Geelong. And what's your winning edge? What did you do?
It was the never give up, which is funny when you're fighting someone on the mat who has exactly the same philosophy.
Yeah.
So watching it is quite incredible because you have 2 people out there fighting for their lives that just don't want to give up.
That's amazing.
It's pretty tough.
And during these full contact battles, do you end up getting bruised and hurt?
Bruised and injured, absolutely. So, and in the sparring as well, because we obviously have to prepare for a match.
Yeah.
And so we are a little bit more careful in the sparring, but certainly there's plenty of injuries.
Yeah, which I think is good for that type of. It's the real deal, you know.
It is.
None of this fancy schmancy stuff, no contact. I mean, for these days, it's a very soft society. These days, you know, all the fancy schmancy stuff's all right, you know. You can't even look at somebody these days. But back you learned the real style. What's it called again?
Kyokushin karate.
It's amazing. Yeah. Tell me that what day, what time was it? What day and what date when you found out you won that championship?
So it was the 1st of August in 1996. And being crowned champion of the All Japan tournament meant that I had won the right to represent Japan at the World Cup, which would be held the next year.
The next year?
And that's only held every 4 years.
So did you quickly slip back to Geelong along the way?
Well, that was the dilemma for the Japanese because they then didn't know whether to allow me to fight and represent Japan or whether I would go back and represent
This
Australia.
Sounds a bit like the Karate Kid.
It felt a little bit like the Karate Kid.
Did you have there must have been people going, God, who's this bitch?
Yeah,
in their own language.
It was, and it was fun. It was hilarious. Media outlets, karate was quite popular over there, so I got interviewed through media outlets, and they were all scratching their head, wondering how this foreigner had come across and taken their title.
This is amazing. And then you fell in love, and when did you get married?
Well, he became my coach after I won the All Japan in preparation for the World Cup.
You still haven't told me about the knee. He kicked your knee up.
Yeah, and that's when it happened. So we'd spent about a year preparing for the tournament, and it was about 4 or 5 weeks just before I was due to fight in the World Cup.
Yeah.
And we were at sparring, and part of that philosophy that we're talking about never giving up was ingrained in our training.
Yeah.
And he kicked me. He did a low kick to my leg. And I just blocked it, but he fought heavyweight, and at the time I was fighting lightweight, so it was a pretty big kick.
Wow, probably the most romantic sparring match ever. You know, this is great. Pain, love, emotions, and what a disciplined man. And then when does he say, I love you?
Well, his response to that was get up.
Oh, that's right.
It wasn't I love you or will you marry me? It was get up. And you won't be able to do this on the world.
And what happened to the knee? Was it really...
So it was the small bone between my knee and my ankle.
Ouch.
Not weight bearing. So we went to the doctor and he said, who looked after all of us karate fighters, and he said, you could fight. So 4 weeks later, I stood on the stage and fought in the World Cup.
How did the knee feel?
I had to retrain myself, so I became a much better puncher in those 4 weeks.
God, we'll talk about the World Cup after the break. This is amazing. Don't go away. Diana Murase is on the couch. She's a world champion karate practitioner, and so is her husband. Can you imagine these two walking down Geelong and a few teenagers coming up and trying to steal Diana's handbag? I think she would turn around and subdue them. They'd be on the ground, and the master sensei himself, your husband, who fell in love with you during the tournament, He'd be a machine. He'd be a weapon as well, wouldn't
He's
he?
very protective. He is.
He'd be so protective over you and your beautiful children, but he'd have a very good heart. I can feel it.
He certainly does.
He would, especially because, you know, I can imagine people who teach are always very kind-hearted.
Yes, and he went on to raise the now world champion, which is an amazing story as well.
That is amazing. So he trained the world champion.
Yeah, so as a couple of boys, we left Japan to come and have family over in Australia in the year 2000, and two beautiful boys that were at the dojo and had been training with us for about 4 or 5 years, now run the dojo that we used to run. And have become world champions. So it's a beautiful
Isn't that
story.
amazing? If you just tune in, Diana sort of, from Geelong, followed her dreams at 25, crying herself to sleep at a family in Japan. But then with first time for a non-Asian woman to win this amazing Japanese tournament. And then the world champions come up. Somewhere along the way, she falls in love with her husband and he breaks her knee. And do you then get married before the championships or after?
No, it was after.
After.
Yes.
Tell me about these world championships.
So-
Same people?
It was slightly different. So it was 16 people from around the world were selected. So it was a pretty exclusive tournament. And I got through to the final. Had learnt to punch and knee rather than kick because of the injury to my leg. Was very excited to get through to the final and lost to a Hungarian fighter who was an absolute machine.
And congratulations on all that discipline and all that success. And then you said, okay, we'll put the fighting aside. Let's get married.
We did. Well, we made a decision just prior. We hadn't told anybody at that stage.
Yeah.
We sort of said if we were going to stay together, it needed to be serious. And we were both at that age, at 25. And so shortly after, we decided to tell people that we were going to stay together. And I originally packed up my life and moved to live in Japan and moved in with his family, which is a very traditional part of their culture.
Beautiful.
And
you got married there?
We got married there, and I got dressed and had the kimono, a beautiful white kimono, and then a lovely coloured kimono, and then another dress after that. So a very big event, a Japanese wedding.
Oh, lots of people?
Yes, we did have lots of people.
No COVID restrictions?
Not at that stage, thank goodness. But we also came home to have a wedding with family.
Another wedding. And were people surprised that you came home with this, one of the finest fighters in the world, or?
They were very surprised. They certainly weren't expecting me to come back with a trophy nor a husband.
No.
So.
And your lovely husband, coming from Japan, and you guys he couldn't speak English, you couldn't speak his language. It was the language of love and fighting. So then, when did you taught him how to speak English?
Yeah, so he came out to Australia.
Yes.
And he went to English school. So I was working and he went to English school.
Yes.
And so he basically took on the same challenge and got himself out of his comfort zone.
That is so beautiful. Yeah. And how does he spend his time now?
Well, he's become very Australian. He loves watching Aussie rules.
That's it. Yeah.
And he surfs, fishes.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And we are both busy with our beautiful kids, Ricky and Meg, taking them to their sporting pursuits.
That's fantastic. Your son got into Melbourne Law School. What's your daughter doing?
So she's just started year 7.
Yeah, fantastic. And so you're not teaching anymore?
No, so I came back and I was teaching karate.
Yeah.
But decided that a career was what I was after. It was very hard to have, after training full time and fighting professionally, to maintain that. So I decided to use that same spirit of perseverance and head into career, and I've been really enjoying doing that.
You're really one in a million. You'd be great at a dinner party. You know, all these ladies be sitting there with their fancy schmancy handbags, the different brands, and they go, so, they want to find out about your life. And, and not many people have gone down that path or even to your level.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that I did it. And that's another piece of advice to my kids is to go and do it while you can, because you don't know if you'll have that opportunity later.
No, a great opportunity. And certainly that discipline has scattered into other parts of your life, yeah? Yeah,
so I apply that same discipline to work now, which I just love. I work at an international school in Geelong, Kuzilny International College. Yeah. I'm the director of IT there, and that's my new passion, and I love putting everything into that as well.
And I can imagine the food, very much Asian culture as well, Japanese food.
Yes, it absolutely
healthy.
Is. Yeah, absolutely. And my dad was Serbian, so we have a very extensive menu at home.
Yeah, and your extended family in Japan, are they still alive?
So my mother-in-law and brother-in-law are over there, and we certainly try and get over there. We were lucky to get to Japan just before COVID and travel restrictions came in.
They're beautiful people, aren't they? And it's a beautiful lifestyle. And it's so amazing that you went there. So what's your view on the Japanese lifestyle and culture?
I would love to pick up parts of the Japanese culture and bring it back to Australia.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons I work at the school I do, because its motto is around respect. It was actually bought by a Japanese man and set up the school that I work with. And I love that connection because I think that that's something that's perhaps missing a little bit is respect. And I love that.
You know, you're so right. Respect, and that's right. It is missing, and we've got a lot to learn, haven't we?
Wisdom, respect, and friendship are the values of our school, and that's my new mottos. Absolutely.
Wisdom, respect, and friendship. That's so true, isn't it, folks? We've turned into a very fast-paced, hate-filled, and busy society. Everyone's busy, but respect. You know, we're becoming less respectful, and more stress, more anxiety, and martial arts is a great tool. Congratulations. Thanks for coming down, Diana.
I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for talking
You're
to
a
me
wonderful
today.
person, and thanks very much for watching. What an amazing lady. We'll see you next week.